Afternoon, everybody. So today we're going to be talking about time and attendance, and I'm going to have the fun of presenting a working demonstration of the handheld device on the screen for you. And to use that, I'm using one of the many tools there are around. This particular one is lost somewhere around in, there it is, down there. Up here comes. And as ever, I'm going to try and make it at least 80 or 90% demo, but just to bring us up to speed, if you missed yesterday on the app, or if you missed any of the booking ones, I'll just show you where this check-in and check-out fits in, and then we'll jump into the agenda. So very briefly, we have looked at, once you've won the business, you want to, for example, pay your staff so they work for you again. You want to be able to differentiate between those that always turn up late or don't bother turning up at all, or pretend to have turned up, but they actually, at the time allocated for them to start, were still 3 miles away at the station. And you want to be able to also prove to your clients that your staff turn up better than any other agency and they're all there on time, especially obviously if it's a security or health and safety issue. We spend a lot of time working with our clients in the area of security, for example, and health and safety, because football matches can't start if all of the people aren't there. Crowds can't congregate, and most importantly, if you have a lone worker to support, you need to know if they're still up and about or if they've got into trouble. So there are a large number of reasons why you would use a time and attendance system, and especially the continuous tracking features that we provide, as well as just whether or not somebody turned up at a shop to do their demos in the morning. So it's a very important part of the staff journey, this discipline of turning up on time, so that their back-to-back contract with you is back-to-back with the client's expectations of the time that they will spend doing the work. You may remember when we looked at the app, we left a couple of things out which are to be dealt with in other sessions. So on Monday, for example, that last item, e-learning, is going to be done. Today we're looking at Kiko, check-in, check-out, and the whole area of proving that somebody was where they were supposed to be. This is a rough agenda of what I'm going to be demonstrating. And if I just flip through to the demo here, I probably just need to renew it. It probably will have gone off a little bit. So you may remember in the staffing app, people can edit their details, recommend friends to work for you. They can do dozens of things on the menu, depending on which functions that you have bought for your system. Now, what I was just going to do was, before we log into this chap, I was just going to repeat the exercise that we did yesterday when he turned up for his shift at Crowthorne Pub. But I was going to take you into two areas in order that you can see how you set this up in the back end. So here we go. First of all, I'm going to show you the check-in, check-out asset list. So I've got a list of the assets in our demo system here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to search for those assets which are check-in, check-out assets. So these are things like, actually I can probably show you on my machine here. If I just turn around, if I just whip to, bear with me a moment, see if I can get to the bottom of this. Just going to log in again. Seems to know who I am from biometrics. And if I go to this here, so this item here is an accelerate checkpoint, and when you look at one of these checkpoints, so you can see how it can screw in, well, it can't quite here, but if I just do that, you can see how it can screw into a wall and somebody can wand their card past it. And so if we look at this one here, asset 27, that appears to be at Oakdale, so at our offices, which is lucky, so I can check in and check out. It's got all of the electronics in it, and you can see who owns it and so on and so forth. So it's also got various other technical attributes which I won't bore you with that are available in our asset tracking system for this kind of asset. And once again, that's a list of assets and the sorts of things that, if you're not familiar with asset tracking until the super user course, would be radios, high vis equipment, all kinds of stuff. Going back to the reports page, you'll probably find, if you've got these types of reports, you'll probably find the check-in, check-out report somewhere lurking out around in your system. It'll be called something different in everybody's system, but it'll be something like a list of the names of people who are supposed to have checked in and checked out today. As you can see, it defaults to today. A picture of themselves. Now, none of our demo people who are obviously imaginary people have actually been out to work. That's probably because they don't exist, and the places they're working certainly don't exist. Let's move on now to the test person that we were looking at yesterday. So if we go and search for that guy, Johnny Test, his bookings include today, I think, at the pub again. So if I just go and take a look at that, so there he is at the Dog and Duck in Crowthorne. And if we look at his payroll, for example, on here, we can see that he's actually booked in at 17:45. And for the purposes of this, because it's 10 minutes past 12 now, I'll just repeat the demo that I did yesterday. Oh, he's got a strike. I wonder what that was for. So if I just repeat the demo that he did yesterday, I would probably just change that planned time to 12:20 so that we can legally log in. Most systems will have an area of time that you can log in from. So the idea here is now, if I save that he can now check in. And if I go back on the system here to the Accelerate app, just over there, and we go to this guy's area. Where's my Accelerate app demo system? Somewhere around here. There we are. So it's a little bit behind. So there we are, it's caught up. And if we view current events, you can see that he hasn't actually confirmed that he's going to turn up. He should have done that on the previous day. I'm not sure if you have that functionality, but you can ask people to confirm on the morning of the session, the shift they're going to do, that they're actually going to turn up, or the previous night. And some of you will have options not to pay them if they don't confirm that they're going to turn up as well. Likewise, for those people that are not going to turn up for a Saturday morning shift, it's an opportunity for them to say, I'm feeling ill today, and then at least you've got a few more hours notice to be able to replace them. So if I view the details, I can see that there's that start time, and you'll recall, assuming this thing will refresh itself, there we go, you'll recall that I can check in and check out there if I'm allowed to. The screen has not caught up yet. Now it has, and I can check in with an image. And normally I would take a picture of myself outside the Dog and Duck. I'm just going to take a picture of something like that. There we go, and say that's okay. I agree, that's a picture of myself standing outside Putney Station or wherever it is. Upload it. It seems to be behaving itself today. I think it sort of doubled up on the screen share yesterday. So that now will show, if I refresh this screen over here, that will show at some point today, whoops, function F5, go refresh it. That shows that, my goodness, that's exactly the same time as I logged in yesterday during the demo. So, so we have an asset that is logged, but it's not at this Dog and Duck. The asset is logged at another location. So if I had, instead of doing this check-in, check-out, I had gone down on my app down at the bottom here, I could have used this system here to be able to wand it past, which I'm not going to show you now because I don't actually have, I think we sold the last of our stock yet again of these Accelerate checkpoints. So I could just wand it past the actual asset. I might have one somewhere around. No, not immediately to hand. I could wand it past the asset, and the only place that asset with that code number could be is where the person and their phone is. I rather prefer, in many ways, the phone picture one, because you actually get a picture of the person outside the place where they're supposed to be doing their demo or their guarding. The only problem with that is there are, and we'll touch on this in 2 more points in the agenda. The only problem is that there are certain differences in the way in which different phones work now because of privacy. So if we just go on to this, so the so we've taken a look at the reasons why we use check-in and check-out. Obviously, client sign-off and agreeing that they've actually done the work is one of the most important in terms of putting in your revenue, and then using that revenue to pay the staff and make sure you pay the people that turn up on time, not the ones that don't, and so on, is very important. But I think you're pretty clear on those. We've talked about asset location. You can obviously put an asset like a checkpoint at a location, or if you can't, if you've got 800 people turning up at 800 supermarket stores on a Saturday morning to do demonstrations and count stock and look at competitive pricing or something, you can't possibly place one of these assets at each of those locations. So that's when the geolocation of the phone and the photo really works. The only problem with the picture proof is it's really super duper until the phone manufacturers decide that they're actually going to withdraw more and more information from the phones for privacy reasons. And very often when we attempt to get our apps approved the next time and the next time, which is why our manufacturing releases for the apps are every 3 to 6 months now, is because all of the rules may have changed, and something that was available and allowed in the app only 6 months ago is now not allowed. And you'll probably be aware, if you have an iPhone, of the strictures that they put on various types of uploading of photos when you try to look at the EXIF data, the data within the photo that shows you the altitude that it was taken at, the time, of course, the geolocation that it was taken at, and so on. So that's a subject for a rant at some other point in the pub, perhaps, but not for a training course. But by and large, we keep up to date, and we within the restrictions of the phones, we provide quite a good proof of attendance. Somebody once said, "What if somebody took a picture of themselves by the Dyson Hoover they were supposed to be demonstrating at this big department store in Paris on the Monday and just uploaded the same picture every day?" Well, I think you'd probably catch that. I think the main idea is to be able to look down a report like this, and I mean, obviously there's no pictures of people on here. Well, actually there might be today. Might be a picture of that notebook that I just took. Yeah, there we go. And you can look there, and if they're stood in precisely the same place, then I think you probably would click, and you'd probably want to look at the EXIF data and have a look and see what time it was taken, where it was taken, the geolocation, and so on. And you might want to ring that person up and say, well, if you're at Putney Station, what's happening on whatever? So I think in the times when you're checking and you don't trust somebody, there's more checks than you can do. The main idea here is if you've got 100 people that are supposed to be turning up at a certain time, you can very, very quickly focus in on the ones that are taking the mickey. You could, for example, not just say today, but you could just say, I'm only interested in John Tester, like that. And then you could say between, let's say, for the last week. So the last week to today. There we go. So if I now refresh that, we've got John Tester week to today. So I only did a demo yesterday and today by a fluke at exactly the same time. Looks as if I'm fiddling the demos, doesn't it? And you can see he's 6,932 minutes late for that one, and so on and so forth. So you can see he's 9 minutes early for these two here. And there's the pictures. That's the picture of the pen that I took yesterday. So it's a pretty good check on people turning up, and I really advise you to use it because it's cost free to you. It's what we call BYOD, bring your own device. So that takes us on to third-party equipment. Third-party equipment is very common these days, especially if you want to use card swipes and biometrics. So the Accelerate checkpoints don't take up any power. They've got a one-off capital cost of about 150 quid, and you can place them there. They're all weather tested. We typically have them white background, and we have your logo printed on them so that the person can find them at the 5 locations they're supposed to go past every hour or whatever. And obviously, in your system, you can move them around. So it's a once-off cost, and you get a lot of value for that. You also obviously need the asset management system for that. We'll be looking at that in the super user course. If you go for biometric equipment, then every card that you buy and hand out to your people will cost you about £1 or two, especially if it's an RFID or if it's a smart card or something and it's printed with your logo, the name of the person. You would then need to asset that in our system so that if somebody lost a card or tried to give it away or something, you can at least retire that card so you know it's lost and it can't be used. It can't be used to swipe into anywhere. The other thing about swiping cards in is that it will do things like open doors and give you access to places. So the card swipe technology is very good for combining both access and proof of attendance. And we use that at quite a lot of stadiums and large organizations where hundreds of staff are going to the same 3 or 4 places on a regular basis. So it makes sense to spend 3 or 4 grand per location to be able to do that, especially if you're also using biometrics. So if you are using Paxton or Almas or any of the other systems which allow you to plug in biometric systems, you not only find out if somebody's card has been through, which they may have given to their brother or sister, or somebody looking similar, or sometimes not even looking similar to go and do that shift for them, or a PAL to pass 3 cards through, but you can also do fingerprint and face and eye checking so that you can get a fairly unique view of the person and make sure that they're correctly identified and the right person, the person with the training in the health and safety that you expect to be in that location, and maybe the SIA qualification or the brand training that you've given is actually the person that's turning up. So that's a rough run through check in, check out. Every customer is different in terms of the requirements, what you're looking to use it for. And once you are using it, in terms of the various different issues that arise as a result of using it. By and large, checkpoints, very, very reliable, no working parts, no power required. Third-party equipment, you spend a lot of money installing them, and there are quite a few things which can go wrong, and they need a third-party maintainer. We work with a number of companies that install this type of equipment, and there is a high cost of installing. It's highly skilled to install it. It will typically have a server locally, and each piece of equipment has to have a memory in case the power goes, so that it recalls the last, in some cases, several thousand swipes of the card, especially if you've got hundreds of people going in and out of access points at let's say a football match or a festival. It also requires internet connection, so you can see the bill for installation of one of these things starting to add up. We also sell mobile ones, and there's quite a healthy market as well in porter cabins which have this equipment in, so that you can walk in one door and out of the other, so that you can plonk the porter cabin down at a festival, as an example, or a building site. Is very, very common to use these porter cabins. And you can check somebody's, not just their PPE, but their qualifications, whether they're qualified to walk onto that site or whatever. So that completes the agenda for today.
Yeah, so the check-in, check-out, what happens in a bad signal area? So if somebody were wanting them to check in and there isn't very good signal because they're in a hospital or what have you, what happens with the data? Does it retain the attempt of checking in, or
right?
How does that work?
There are some areas of supermarkets. We've got one, I think Malika's on the call at the moment. We've got one going on at Spitalfields. If we don't solve that one soon, I'm going to go to Spitalfields and find out where there are areas where maybe the internet is fine, but there's something, Google Maps doesn't seem to think something's there. That you can imagine that over the last 5 or 10 years using this technique, we found all sorts of issues. The biggest one is obviously if the internet is not there. This relies on the internet being there, and for most of the places you send people, there will be some internet somewhere. So I can't think of a place at our local hospital, which I've had the pleasure of visiting quite a few times recently, and I couldn't find anywhere where there wasn't internet. Wherever I went, I was able to get onto my internet, but there will be some hospitals I know where internet is short. People also obviously run out of battery. There's various dog ate my homework, as one of my customers calls it, dog ate my homework excuses. But the main one is if you go to some kind of back end or beyond type places, like in the Stans, in Tajikistan or somewhere, you will find places where there's no internet. and you've got to basically save the stuff. And we do have some offline technology to be able to deal with that, but mostly in the UK we don't come across it. Do you have some examples that you've come across in? You mentioned a hospital.
No, I haven't got examples because it's not something we've used yet on Accelerate, but it is a feature that would be great to use. Our concern is if we're relying on check in, check out to be able to define that somebody has arrived at the shift or to do a call or what have you. If they do have signal issues, what would we need a backup plan for that scenario, or we're just trying to make sure that
I must say, in the last 2 or 3 years, it hasn't happened very much for me. There's always been a reasonable explanation, like they got logged out